It might actually be the most derivative one of all. I mean, Christ, the same house.
Maybe so. But you forgot the first rule of surviving a stab movie. Never answer the...
I'm bored.
Wait!
Welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking You Look Like Gwyneth Paltrow on food stamps, and not in a good way. We're talking gender business. And we're talking My Gaydar is as Strong as a Bull. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And we're talking Mom, Who Died?
No, but really, who died?
Who died? Everyone, we are discussing Emma Seligman's 2020 film Shiva, baby. As we kind of prepped you last week, this is an off-kilter pick for us, but it definitely still applies because it is queer and it has a horror
elements.
Yeah, like a through line, technical horror elements, we'll say, even if the content contained therein is not specifically genre.
Yes, I definitely debated whether or not to have something in my intro about, like, take your anxiety meds because this thing will push you over.
I'm telling you, like, I watched this when I was doing, like, my Oscar watch for 2021, 2022, and I sandwiched this between, like, long movies because, of course, all movies that come out nowadays are, like, 2.5 hours long.
Sure.
And I watched it with one of my friends, and he was, like, halfway through, he was like, I might need to pause this for a second.
I need a breather, maybe a cigarette.
Basically.
I mean, in fairness, the lead character takes multiple cigarette breaks, and I have to assume it's because she's trying to escape the same feeling.
Oh, 100%. But before we get too far into this, let's bring in our special guest who's waiting in the wings, Joe. All right, everyone. She is a horror journalist with bylines at such sites as Fangoria, Pajiba, Bloody Disgusting, Anatomy of a Scream, and IGN, often writing from a female and Jewish perspective. You may also remember her from our previous episodes on Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and Saw. Please welcome back Lindsay Traves.
Ah!
A rare return to podcasting.
Yeah, wow. Don't miss it.
Fair.
Event of the summer. No, I didn't mean it like that. I meant like that was an order to the audience. Like, don't miss it. Not I don't miss it.
Oh.
That was me being like, event of the summer. That was me.
That was not clear.
It's okay, Lindsay. Just throw us under the bus. Be like, fuck podcasting. I hate all of you.
I was like, ecstatic to be here. I hate free evenings. No, just...
Well, welcome to Shiva, baby. I think actually out of the three of us, you were the first one to see this movie because I remember you telling us about it, right when you saw it.
Yeah, I saw it out of Real Love Fest, which I don't think was where it premiered. It played a couple other places, and I was very much like, give me this movie. Like, I was very adamant about it, and I kind of was just like waiting for it to hit a festival that I would have access to because I was ready.
Well, I have details on that because it was supposed to premiere at South by in 2020, but then COVID happened and South by got canceled. So,
I want to say it played TIFF.
I think so.
But I didn't cover TIFF, or I didn't get something along those lines. So I was just very much like, how can I get this? And it was playing Real Love Fest. And I literally like applied for a press badge for one movie only.
It's so funny because I had seen the poster for this movie a bunch before I actually looked into like what it was, but I never like looked at the poster for this movie. And everyone, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the poster, go look it up right now because
it's great.
At first glance, it's like, okay, it's Rachel Sennett in like a white wedding dress type thing. But if you like actually look at it, it's a wedding dress or a dress made of cream cheese.
Cream cheese,
yes. Apparently, it was actually whipped cream. There's an interview with her, the director, and I want to say somebody from maybe The Hollywood Reporter on the Blu-ray of this. And basically, they talk about how she had to film this, and it was a race against time because the cream kept slipping, so the bagels were falling off of her.
Oh,
my God.
So they didn't even add that in like in Photoshop. Like, that's like all real shit on that poster.
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, God. I can't even. Like, also the bacteria.
Right?
I love it. AI can't do that or whatever is the cool thing to say now.
It's true. You can't get cream cheese in your vagina through AI.
It's true.
Oh, my God.
And believe me.
We've tried.
Well, okay, so as we said, this movie, while not outwardly a horror film, it has a lot of psychological thriller elements. Cinematography and score are my two things here, and I'll go into this a bit deeper in my production history. But in case y'all didn't know, Shiva Baby is an expansion of writer-director Emma Seligman's 2018 short film of the same title. And this was her thesis project while studying film at NYU. Did all of us watch the short?
I did not.
Okay, I did. It's only 7 minutes long.
That's why you're here.
If you watch it, scenes from the short are like verbatim in the feature-length film. So it really is a short that she added stuff to make this a 77-minute long movie. But it's just obviously a lot less developed. So, you know, she's got... It's not clear if, like, the guy's a sugar daddy. It seems like he's, like, almost like she's a sex worker. But, although I guess, would we call her a sex worker in this movie?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But, like, it ends when his wife shows up with the baby.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so Seligman said that she felt there was room to expand on the short from early on, but needed motivation from lead actress Rachel Sennett to start working on a feature. And the feature film entered production just before the short premiered at the 2018 South by Southwest Film Festival. And despite the short being accepted there, giving Seligman confidence, she said that nobody there was interested in making a low-budget feature. She then approached Katie Schiller, who she said was the best producer in their graduating class at NYU, at Sennett's encouragement.
Okay, so this was a real NYU production.
Very much so. And going into like kind of like how she wanted to do this, she was inspired by Gia Coppola's 2013 film Palo Alto, with the one with Emma Roberts. Have y'all seen that?
No.
Okay, apparently the way it portrays the, and I quote, the suffocating and debilitating nature of young female insecurities is what she was going for. She was also heavily inspired by Trey Edward Schultz's 2015 film Krisha and how its location was used for storytelling, but that's another movie. And Trey Edward Schultz, by the way, y'all, it's the guy that directed It Comes at Night and Waves.
Right.
But that's another movie where it's a drama, but it's shot and scored like a horror film. So it's very anxiety-inducing. So if you liked the vibe of Shiva Baby, definitely seek out Krisha. I haven't seen it, but my husband loves it.
Okay.
The production budget of Shiva Baby was $200,000, and getting that financing approved it was a troublesome task for them. So they sought funding for a year and received some offers from organizations that requested more creative control over the film in return, as you do. They didn't want to do that. Also, Seligman is a Canadian, and at one point her visa expired, so she had to return to Canada, halting production again.
Right. Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah. Filmmaker Amanda Kramer, a friend of Seligman, put them in contact with Rhiannon Jones of Neon Heart Productions, who became an executive producer, and it was her involvement that got more investors interested in the project. Again, the business side of things. That being said, most of the financing came from outside funding and independent funding from people the production team knew, including the parents of one of the producers.
That tracks.
Yeah.
I was like waiting for like, at what point was everyone asking their parents?
I mean, it's an NYU student production, right? Like, hey, we're making a movie about a sugar baby, but also we kind of need to be sugar babies for our parents. They need to give us money to make the movie.
Yeah.
The small budget is also part of the reason a single location was used for the film, outside of the opening scene, of course. The crew were also friends of the producers, and most took a cut in their usual rate, while the film's editor, Hannah Park, was Seligman's roommate.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the casting. And I think we all know that Rachel Sennett is kind of a big deal right now. This was her breakout role, but of course she was the scene stealer in last year's Bodies, 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 and she is the co-lead of Emma Seligman's next feature, the upcoming comedy Bottoms, with Ayo Edebiri.
Right. That one's going to be huge.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see it.
So am I. That was one I missed at South by, and I've been like biding time, just waiting.
Shame on you.
I know. I deserve it.
Seligman noticed Sennett at NYU when she was acting in other students' thesis films and making comedy sketches. Thinking that she looked, quote-unquote, like someone she would run into at a family event, Seligman cast Sennett in her own thesis film, The Shiva Baby Short. They formed a collaborative bond, and Seligman never even thought about casting someone else when she decided to expand it into a feature. That being said, unlike her character Danielle in Shiva Baby, Sennett is neither queer nor Jewish. So, at the time, there were accusations of Jew face directed at the film, although I confess I didn't see a lot of this happening at the time, so I missed it. Admittedly, it's also not something I'm super knowledgeable about, although reading into what Jewface is, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I'm part of the problem there.
Well, Trace, you and I had a back and forth exchange where we were both very surprised to learn that Rachel Sennett is not Jewish and not queer, because we both went into this being like, yeah, that's why she always plays all these roles. And then, oop.
Yeah. So we've discussed this before, right? Like, my thoughts on the whole only gay actors can play gay characters has been discussed. I don't remember the episode we discussed it on, but I know I've put my thoughts out there. However, Jewface, I think, is maybe in the same ballpark as that, but it's strictly on looks instead of like I was going to say instead of an identity, but that's not really the same thing because isn't.
Hello, gay face, Trace.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a spectrum. Like, I definitely, oh god, a spectrum. I also thought Rachel Sennett was Jewish until I learned that she wasn't. And then when I learned that she was Italian, I was like, of course. Because there's this, like, very long-running joke that I am quite obsessed with about the covenant of Jews and Italians being the only ones allowed to play each other. And the joke that, like, we're the only ones that can play each other authentically. And it's, like, something, there's just, like, enough shared appearance and enough shared like cultural whatever that like I just feel like we can play each other, like we can get away with it. James Caan played a lot of Italians and Robert De Niro played a lot of Jews. I don't know if anyone's buying that, but yeah, like anyway, so that's, I don't know, not actually a thing, but it is a thing. We play each other a lot, and yeah, so I thought that too. I don't know, I do think there's a spectrum. Like I think yes, Judaism is, depends who you ask, or an ethno-religion, some people will say. So there are bloodlines, like there are actual Jewish bloodlines that come with certain appearances. There are certain cultural histories, and the way we carry ourselves and the way we speak is a little bit different. We can identify each other, that sort of thing. But then, of course, like Judaism is also a religion that does not only exist, like there are a lot of Jewish people of color that don't look like Rachel Sennett and and don't look like me. So who's the most, Jewish appearing of the three of us, right? So, like, I don't know. So I do think it's a bit of a spectrum. I don't know what you ended up saying about non-queer actors playing queer roles. I don't know what your contentions were there, but I think it's sort of like, it's about the authentic storytelling. It doesn't mean that only Jews can play Jews, and it doesn't mean that Jews have to play Jews, but it's also like, who is being seen? Who is representing this group? What do they look like? And I think there's a lot to that. Like when Jared Leto played a Jewish guy and had like a fake prosthetic nose, like don't know about that, not my favorite, not so great. But I think it was kind of like a comedy of errors. The movie where he plays that like CEO, is it a series?
Is it We Crash?
Yes.
Oh my god, that's not even that long ago.
No, but like I do think it was just like, look, that's what this guy looked like, but then you're also like, ooh, I don't know about that, everyone. Like that's not so good.
Or we just cast a different actor.
Yeah, like maybe that's just like not the move. Maybe we don't put noses on people playing Jews. So that's the kind of thing where you're like, ooh, I don't know about that. That I think is on one end, and then the other side you have like Rachel Sennett, who a big plot point in this movie is the Jewish beauty ideal compared to the quote shiksa beauty ideal. Right. So I think that like Rachel Sennett is hot. Like she's obviously hot. Very hot, and she does kind of have a very similar body type to and hair like texture to a lot of Jewish women in that category. So I'm kind of like, that's cool to me personally. Like I don't speak for everybody, but like that's where I'm like, okay, I think there's a big spectrum. It's kind of like who's playing us, who gets to play us. Like, De Niro doesn't need to play all the tough Jews that have ever existed. Like, let one of us play one of the tough Jews. Like, for the love of God, everyone thinks that we look like Woody Allen, and it's not true. So I'm kind of like, let, Liev Schreiber play some more Jews. You know what I mean? That's sort of like, so there is that, and I will always joke, like, I mean, I talked when I was like, oh, like Moon Knight. We couldn't get a Jewish guy to be Moon Knight. Like, that sucks. Like, it would have been way better if we did, and I hate that we didn't. But I'm also like, it's okay. It's not like, I don't know. I think there is like a spectrum, and it's not as black and white as like Jews have to play Jews and only Jews can play Jews. I think it's like a little bit broader than that.
That's similar to how I feel about queer actors playing queer characters. But I also think, I mean, and not to say that Seligman like has like carte blanche to be like, oh, she's Jewish, so she can make whatever decision she wants. But she also clearly already had this relationship with Sennett. She also, I mean, like, it's like, oh, it's her short film. And yeah, she wants to keep the same actress in the role. And I'm sure when she was making the short film, she wasn't like, oh, good, this is going to be like seen for millions of people in this big box office movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, right. And Sennett also was like integral in pushing her to write the script.
Right.
And like they've been collaborators. So again, I don't know that excuses things, but one of the things I was thinking of when you were speaking, Lindsay, was it comes down to a certain amount of intentionality and authenticity. And it's like Seligman is providing that. And so to me, it was less about, oh, does Rachel Sennett look Jewish, as opposed to, oh, are we hitting the right beats? Are we doing it respectfully? Are we doing it in a way that feels authentic?
Well, but also I would say, though, and to me, the casting of Dianna Agron as Kim in this movie is kind of key to that. I don't know if it's intentional commentary, but so everyone, Dianna Agron, who plays the only non-Jew in this film, is Jewish in real life. And again, she doesn't look like what a quote-unquote stereotypical Jewish person would look like, or what the public's perception of stereotypical Jews looks like. And so I almost think it's kind of a commentary on the audience to be like, oh, like you thought Sennett was Jewish because she looked this way, and you didn't think Agron was Jewish because she looks this way. But hey, psych, it's the opposite.
Yeah. Flip them over and reverse it.
I actually said something in my review about that without knowing that Dianna Agron was Jewish. Like, I mentioned the element that, like, you know, her instinct to tear down this beauty ideal that Jewish women most of the time cannot achieve. Like, I do actually have a cousin that looks exactly like that, but most of the time it's not a very common look for a lot of Jewish women. And I went in about that, and then someone was like, she's Jewish. And I was like, oh, no shit. And then, I noticed she was Jewish later and was like, oh, that's embarrassing. But I was like, whatever, my point still stands. But then somebody else said, what somebody did say to me was like, don't you think it's anti-Semitic that you think that Jewish women can't be pretty because they don't look like that? And I was like, that is not what I said. That's not what I meant, but okay. And then when I found out she was Jewish, I was like, oh, lol. But yeah, because I think the point still stands that it's an ideal that we don't tend to fit into.
Right.
But yeah.
And so I didn't get a ton of quotes about Seligman about that aspect of it, but speaking on queer actors playing queer roles, she discussed it, saying it's a trickier issue for her because having spoken with actors who are not out but are queer, she said that for everyone on screen playing a queer character to be out and proud and talking about their sexuality, it's just a lot to ask of someone. And so, and I get that. Didn't
that happen recently? Wasn't there someone, oh my God, this is not maybe relevant, but there was a young actor recently who had been getting a lot of queer baiting, queer whatever, and then they were like, yeah, thanks, I'm queer, I just I'm not out, but I guess I have to be out to make you all stop giving me shit about being a liar. And I was like, oh, ouchie, that's a bummer.
It definitely happened to one of the guys on Heartstopper, Kit Connor, and then I think Noah Schnapp.
Maybe.
The kid from Stranger Things. I don't think he was forced out, but it was definitely people hounded him online to say, hey, your character Will is kind of queer. Are you also queer?
Yeah, he said he probably wouldn't have been able to come out without if that character wasn't queer, because I think it maybe helped him realize things about himself. But that kid from Heartstopper, I really appreciated him because he responded to people and was like, fuck you guys.
He was mad.
Say, fuck you guys,
I think that's what I'm thinking of, because it was something that I didn't know about, but I saw the response and I was like, oh, interesting point.
Yeah, very interesting point.
Yeah.
It happens quite often. It's actually one of the things that causes me a great deal of dismay about the queer community, where when we get into these conversations about representation, we feel like we are owed someone to disclose their sexuality. And we're recording this on the eve of Red, White, and Royal Blue coming out, and both of the actors in that movie have not disclosed their sexuality. And I have a feeling there's going to be all this speculation. There's going to be all these people saying, oh, well, you seem to have really good chemistry, or, oh, I got a queer thing. What are you? And it's they're public figures, but we're not owed any kind of answers about what they do in private.
Yeah, the life experience thing is it's such an interesting discussion. And again, that's a broad subject. But I mean, this is kind of all in the same ballpark to me as when people talk about, oh, if you're going to make a movie that features sexual assault, then oh, well, have you ever been sexually assaulted? Why would you want to convey that? And it's well, should a person really have to
go through everything?
Yeah, well, go through everything, or even if they have, be open about it publicly if they're going to make art about it, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good second annotation. I think, to me, going back to what we were saying about the quote Jew face of it all, is it's like, is it authentic, and then who's being excluded? Like, if there were like no queer actors working, and gay actors were being told like, "Ooh, you're too gay, you can't play this gay role," or what, like that. That's what I mean about it, like being broader. And I won't speak for queer people as someone who's not queer, but I think that's kind of also what I was getting at here too. I think they're kind of analogous in a way where there's not like one way to be those things or whatever, and in that it's like, is the story authentic? Is it working? Like, if Rachel Sennett looked like, I don't know, looked more like Dianna Agron's the worst example.
How about Jennifer
But if she
Lawrence?
looked like that and then was being like, I hate that I'm short and thick like most Jewish girls, you'd be like, what is going on here? Like, or if there was like a story about her appearance and her appearance didn't align with the group that she was representing, you'd be like, this is inauthentic, this isn't working. But I think that, like, in my opinion, and again, this is just me, the movie is stacked with a lot of Jewish actors. It's obviously a Jewish writer-director. There's a lot of authenticity there. This is an actress who suits the sort of mold of the character that she's playing. Her appearance, as it matters to the plot, lines up, and it's not in a way that's like offensive. They didn't cast a woman with a big giant hooked nose just to make her look Jewish. Like, it
which
works,
we've done,
which we have done. So like, it's, to me, I'm like, I think again, it's about that like quote spectrum of like, is it authentic? Who's making it? Who's making decisions? Who's being excluded?
Yeah.
It comes up a lot, and I see the point because, again, I was the first person who was really disappointed about Moon Knight, which is for whatever reason off the top of my head that I'm thinking of. But there's very often times where I'm like, oh, how disappointing. Like, I'm so excited we're having a Jewish Superman. But anyway, can't wait.
Oh, wait.
Not gonna shut up about it.
I was gonna say, that's actually another example. Isn't Lois Lane Jewish, but Rachel Brosnahan isn't Jewish.
She's not.
She's not.
And she was playing a Jewish woman on Mrs. Maisel for 5 years.
Exactly. And when I found out she wasn't Jewish, I was like, ugh, and like couldn't watch the show. But like, that's not me saying the show is bad.
I really like the show, but I understand.
I was like, whatever, tiny turned up nose lady, but that's not a fair assessment of the series at all. So I very much am like the first person to be like, oh man, but this is not one that lit me ablaze. I think that I was kind of like, I get it.
I think if nothing else, it's one of those things where we continue to be vigilant and sort of flag it. Like, if it comes up too often, then it's like, hey, maybe we need to have a conversation with people who are doing casting or people who are looking for, quote unquote, certain types of people to fit certain types of roles. But at the same time, it's like, it's a sort of pick your battles, and also not everything has to be for you. So, Lindsay, you watched Mrs. Maisel and you're like, meh, it doesn't do it for me because now I know, and I just can't feed into the fantasy. And that's your prerogative. It worked for people like Trace, and that's fine.
People love it. A lot of Jews loved it. So again, this is not me like speaking
there you go.
People. And then I think like by comparison, like again, I don't know why I'm like obsessed with Moon Knight. Like there are like no Jews in the MCU. Like there's none. Like Jake Gyllenhaal is like the closest we got, and he was in it for like 20 minutes. Like, I mean, actually that's not true. I guess we have Scarlett Johansson. That's maybe a completely unfair assessment. There's like, ScarJo and Natalie Portman, whatever. Not a lot of Jews running around the MCU. I was like, we finally get a Jewish character. It was very exciting, and we didn't get that. Yeah. We couldn't get him, so that's why.
Yeah, no,
hard not to get excited when there's a big role too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh God, Jeff Goldblum's in the MCU. Jesus Christ. Oh, Paul Rudd. Okay, never mind.
Did you just Google like
just
Jews in the MCU?
No, leave it in. I will bear it.
And Dianna Agron was in this movie. Oh wait,
God.
never mind.
Yeah.
I will say I really like her in this movie, but I'll say that until we get to the actual plot.
Sure. Okay,
so going into more technical stuff. So Shiva Baby was filmed over 16 days in August of 2019 at an Airbnb in Brooklyn.
Oh boy.
So Seligman chose the house because of its dark wood interior and stained glass windows, providing and I quote, a Yentl-like glow. After scouting the house, she built a model of the first floor out of Legos and used this to make her shot list.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Some of the main struggles related to continuity, particularly working with actors who were not always available at the same time. The production had only 2 days when they had the entire principal 6-person cast together at the same time.
Oof, the struggles of low-budget filmmaking.
I can't. Another struggle was the baby playing Rose, who would not stop crying. This was a learning experience for Seligman, as it forced her to rework some scenes to fit in a crying baby.
Really? I think that works so well in this movie.
It does. It does. The opening scene set before the Shiva at Max's apartment was filmed on the last day, which I do think kind of makes sense given the content of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Director of photography Maria Rush shot about half the film handheld, although they initially considered shooting the movie like a romantic comedy. The anxiety hook was what they found set the tone for most of the process. So to capture the claustrophobia and anxiety of the film in a way that they wanted, they needed to have Danielle, the Rachel Sennett character, surrounded by people, but still allow the principal cast to play off of each other. So to achieve this, Rush decided to use an anamorphic lens so that multiple characters can remain in the shot together through a wider field of view, while still being distinguished from background characters thanks to the lens's depth. But they also wanted to utilize natural image distortion to emphasize Danielle's anxiety. So Rush said the effect of the Kowa lenses helped make it feel like the walls could literally cave in on her and had a good balance of edge distortion without falling apart or losing too much sharpness at the edges.
It's so effective.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Joe, so this was your first time watching this. Like,
Oh.
did the point come across? Like, did you feel anxious watching this movie?
Oh, God. Yeah. I don't know how you could watch this movie and walk away saying, oh, well, that was a fun comedy. Like, it's very amusing, but also the design of the film is very purposeful in making you feel as anxious as Danielle.
Yeah. But as excellent as the cinematography is, this is my opinion, what really adds to the film's anxiety-inducing elements is Ariel Marx's score, who pulled double duty performing the strings as well in the score.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, Seligman wasn't sure if she even wanted to use a score for the film because she was aiming for realism. But she chose to do so to divert focus from background chatter and represent Danielle's emotions. She wanted to have strings to reflect klezmer music, klezmer music being an instrumental musical tradition of the Ashkenazi Jews of Central and Eastern Europe, without being overpowering. Marx also suggested adding the score to some scenes that it had not originally been intended in order to make them more stressful. And again, y'all, if you just hear the score for this movie, it sounds like a horror movie score, like an A24 film.
Yeah.
So for the release, the producers submitted Shiva Baby to the Sundance Film Festival, and though they were given an extension on submission to work on post-production, it was not accepted by Sundance.
Ouch.
Fumbled the bag, Sundance.
It did get accepted to South by Southwest and was slated to premiere there in 2020, but as I already said, that was canceled literally a week before it was supposed to start because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That would have been like March of 2020.
Right.
So instead, they screened it digitally in April of 2020. It also screened digitally at a variety of festivals in August and September of that year, but it had its first physical screening at TIFF in September of 2020. Pandemic lockdowns gave Seligman the time to engage with audiences at many of these festivals, creating, in her words, if not a grassroots campaign, then a ground-up campaign. And that's how they were able to find the right audience for the film. They responded to their excitement and included them in their outreach. In September 2020, just before its TIFF run, Utopia acquired distribution rights to Shiva Baby. It was released in limited theaters and video on demand in Canada on March 26th of 2021 by distributors Pacific Northwest Pictures, and in the US on April 2nd, 2021, when movie theaters finally reopened, a year after lockdown happened. Now, Shiva Baby was the most watched film on the streaming channel Mubi in 2021 by the start of August and ended the year still in the top spot. It had a record-breaking 16-week continuous run from April to July of 2021 at the Quad Cinema in New York.
Nice.
Critical response is overwhelmingly positive. We've got a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think this might be one of the best reviewed movies we've ever covered.
Probably, yeah.
With an average score of 7.9 out of 10. It's got a 79 out of 100 on Metacritic, and Letterboxd users have given it a 7.8 out of 10.
Okay.
Pretty
But,
good.
yeah, that's Shiva Baby, y'all.
Yes, as always, we're done.
We're done.
The end. Nice chatting with you, fellas.
Yep, no need to talk anything more about the film.
No, not at all. But Joe, I will confess, I don't envy you having to take notes on this plot because, like, it's just a lot.
And a first-time watch, yeah. So I'm going to miss some of the character names, I think. I tried to put people's faces to their characters on IMDb, but yeah, I'm probably going to miss a couple of the older women that are gossiping, because I was like, which one is Maureen and which one is Catherine and blah, blah, blah. So I think I've got some of them, but I'm probably missing a few.
I know Jackie Hoffman, who I feel like is in everything I see nowadays.
So great.
It's because you notice her and now you're seeing her in all these things.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of the first thing I really noticed her in, but I don't know if y'all remember this. She's in an episode of The Other Two where she plays a body double for Chase, the younger brother.
Oh, okay.
And her name is Lorraine, and so every time like she pops up in something, my husband just goes, "It's Lorraine!"
Wow. That is not the cut that most people would know Jackie Hoffman from.
No, but y'all will get it.
This is true. Okay, so we open the movie in a stationary long take as we watch Danielle, played by Rachel Sennett, having sex with Max, who is played by Danny DeFerrari, and she is doing this in exchange for money. So it looks like they're having reasonable sex. I did see a couple of people say this is overly enthusiastic and her orgasm sounds very fake. And I was like, oh, I thought she was just into it. But maybe.
That's the joke. That's on purpose. She's paid. She's being like, you're the best. Wow, you're amazing.
As a woman who speaks for all women, yes, please enlighten us on the art of the fake
female
orgasm.
No, am I wrong about that? Isn't it like she's paid? Literally, he's like finished and she's like great and gets up and collects the cash and puts her shirt on. Like, isn't that the bit?
I mean, she doesn't seem to be having a bad time. It just seems like it ends and then we move on.
Yeah, it's a business transaction.
Yes. Thank you, Trace. I know what sex work is.
Do you?
I have not personally... Let me walk that back. I can't say that I haven't engaged in sex work. Let's move on.
Wait!
Okay.
Stop the podcast.
Sexual favors for our favors.
Okay.
Yes, checking. Okay, moving
on. A lot
on.
of follow-ups. There's got a barking dog situation, which is why I'm muted, but let's change the tone here tonight, fellas. Let's get into that.
Get into
I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think,
there.
like, have I'm sure I have traded sex for favors. I'm sure I have in my life in some shape, way, or form. But so... Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. I mean, would we call it as such? Probably not in the moment. We're not being as deliberate as Danielle is, right? Where she is very obviously saying, I'm going to have sex with you. I'm using this app. We both understand how this is going to work.
Oh, does anyone know if this app is real?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either.
The Sugar Baby app? I'm willing to bet it's made up, but there's probably 5 or 10 or 20 million that are exactly like it in real life.
Well, I went to my Apple app store and I just typed sugar. And the top two, like, as in like, oh, like, are you wanting to type this in, are Sugar Daddy and Sugar Daddy Meat. There's also Sugar Baby and Sugar Mama and Sugar Goo.
Ew.
Hi.
Okay, I don't want to know about that last one. Yeah, is this the point where we talk about how stupid I am that I didn't understand that the title of the movie is a literal reference to the baby that is brought to the Shiva, but also the fact that Shiva Baby and Sugar Baby are plays on each other?
Oh,
The Sugar Baby thing didn't occur to me till like months after I saw it.
Joe, that didn't occur to me until you just said that right now.
Okay.
That did not hit for me at all. I had no idea. I just was like, oh, like, is it Shiva comma baby? Is she just like the baby of the Shivas? And like a joke about her age? It wasn't until like way later that I put together the Sugar Baby thing.
Because it's very clever, right? It's a two-pronged title, but yeah, I feel like one of them is very obvious and the other one, it comes to later.
Yeah.
Okay, so as she has been having sex for money, she gets a phone message from her mother. So she plays this, and it's very much, where are you? Why aren't you coming to the funeral? Your dad is waiting. Your dad has lost his mind. He can't find his phone. He can't find his keys. So, it's a lot. Mom, is a lot in this movie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Basic question about Shiva, and I probably should have looked this up beforehand, because I know, so Shiva, like, sitting Shiva, it's like a week-long thing, so this is day 1, but does everyone participate in this 7-day thing, or is it just the family members that do it for 7 days?
Great question. So the family members are, quote, mourners, so, like, mourners are, like, defined like certain family members do it for the whole week, and then you pray in the morning and in the evening. So they actually show that in the movie. They had a little prayer moment at the end.
Yes.
And you need a minion for the prayer, so you need at least, oh my god, how many is it? Oh god, I just said god. Oh god, I think it's 6 or 8. Oh no. Anyway, you need a minion, M-I-N-Y-A-N, if anyone wants to look that up, which is a certain amount of men, depending on your affiliation, that have to be there for the prayer. So the idea is that it's a week where the family is designated at one of their mourners' homes, and the family sits Shiva for the whole week.
Right.
And then people just like kind of come in and out. Like the idea is that it's an open thing where like people come and visit, and they come and they swap stories, and there's food the whole time. Someone deals with the food, so that there's like always food and coffee, and you just like come in and out and hang out, but you need a certain amount of people there in the morning and the evening. So the idea is that people pop in for the prayers, so you at least have people at that time.
So you don't go to work when you're sitting Shiva?
You don't.
Okay.
No.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, you're not supposed to like work. You're not supposed to wear makeup. You're not supposed to look in mirrors. So like, say like mirrors are covered, things like that. Yeah, you're supposed to just like vibe.
Be present, right?
Yeah.
This might be a personal question for you, Lindsay, but like, so do you and your family like do this full thing? Like, is this something that's more for like strict Orthodox Jews, or do like don't want to say more casual Jews?
Yeah, no, this is for everybody. That's what I think. Like, I really identify with this movie, and it was funny. Like afterwards, and this will be funny to any of your Jewish listeners. When I told my mom I'd seen this movie, like 50 of my cousins were like, "Oh yeah, that's what's his name's daughter's movie."
Yes.
I was like, God bless. Just so excellent. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she's like very much from like the Toronto suburbs Jewish community. So like very much the same community as me. So which I didn't know while watching it, but like 10 minutes into it, I was like, oh, this chick watched me. Like this chick lives in my neighborhood.
I feel seen.
Yeah, I like looked behind me to be like, is she recording me? So yeah, it's very, it's not just for Orthodox people. It's very common. Like this movie captures that really well, that it's just like very casual. Like I know when my non-Jewish friends have had to come by Shivas, they're always like, oh my God, what do I wear? What do I say? What's appropriate? And it's like, girl, come in your jeans, come in whatever you're wearing from work. It's just about like hanging out, and it's very like it's very much about like the community being there for each other. Like you come in, so that the idea is that there's just people there all the time, so that the mourners aren't sitting there alone. It's like there's people around, you're being fed, we're chit-chatting, we're chilling on the couch, and like the first day right after the funeral is when it's like high time, because everybody comes straight from the funeral, so that's when it's like really, really crowded and intense like that. But it thins out a bit, except for like morning and evening for prayer time. But yeah, everybody does it. It's not just an Orthodox thing. It's very, very common.
Mm-hmm. It's just such a very different experience, I think, from people who are Catholic or, Muslim. And that, well, actually, it almost sounds a little Muslim in certain ways, like the heavy emphasis on like day and evening prayer and that kind of stuff. But
right. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, maybe just because I've always grown up with Shivas, like, my goodness. This movie also spoke to me a lot because I very much am obsessed with, like, the comedy of Shivas. And, I definitely grew up around that. And, like, the idea of, those things that just seem foreign to you because you never grew up with them.
Yeah, right.
The idea of, like, going to a funeral and then, like, someone just, like, goes home after and is alone. I'm like, what a nightmare. Yeah. But then also when I'm at a Shiva and it's like, and I'm a mourner, I'm like, get me out of here. Like, I want to claw the skin off my face. Everybody get out of the house. Like, I can't handle this. I like can't breathe. Everyone's all over me. But then when they leave, you're like, I am so happy they were all here this whole time.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's just one of those things. So that's what I feel like this movie captures so well. It's like the community, and it's loving, and everybody loves each other and taking care of each other, but get me out of here.
Yes. I mean, how do you feel then about people like Trace and I, where we say, oh, this movie is so anxiety ridden, and it's like, it feels so super claustrophobic and this kind of stuff. It's like, well, no, but it's also very much about community. If you're focusing only on the anxiety, you're missing the other half of why all those people are there, right?
Yeah, I don't think that you're necessarily missing a piece of it. It's funny, like, I think anxiety in Jewish movies is obviously something I think about a lot. I had a good laugh after Uncut Gems because I thought it was so funny how everybody was just talking about how like that movie made them so anxious and they were so anxious and everyone was so anxious as the anxious I've ever been. And I was like, oh, okay. Like it seemed pretty chill to me. Yeah. I was like, I was actually very comfortable and thought it was like a really relaxing movie.
Oh my God.
And then I posted something to that effect where I like posted like everyone else having this reaction, like Jews, and put like, I posted something to that effect and a bunch of Jewish people messaged me to be like, yeah, I actually found it like very calming. And I thought that was so funny that like, I was like, oh, this is what our brains are like, such that when we see that, we're like, oh, he completed all his tasks by the end of the day. So it was actually like a very successful, relaxing movie. And that's how I feel about Uncut Gems. But then watching this, like, yeah, I don't think you're missing much, but maybe like, I agree. I think there's so much to say about the community there. Like, I really love the moment where they all stop to pray because it just shows you that like, it is such an intense situation and it's so easy to get like caught up in yourself. Like there are mourners there, but like, do you even know which characters are the mourners? Like, no. They're completely like irrelevant to the story. And so it is just this like really weird, big community event sometimes. But then if you think about it, like, that's really nice. Like all these kids from the block are here talking about school and what they're working on to these mourners that would otherwise be like alone with their thoughts, you know? So yeah, I think I don't know. I don't feel like you're missing anything per se, but I also am happy to share with you that it is a lovely community event.
There we go. Yeah. So I did want to highlight, just because as a first-time watch, I got a lot of delight before we get to the Shiva, before we get introduced to Daniel's parents. I think that Max is such a hilarious asshole of a character in this movie. So when he gives her the money and then he pledges support to female entrepreneurs and calls her the future, it's just like, oh, we hate this guy. This guy is trash.
He is like a despicable character.
But like, he's not an out and out villain. He's just a guy who's committing infidelity, but he's also garbage.
Well, yes. I would also argue, though, he's stealing from his wife.
Well, yes.
Interesting.
Valid point.
I think he just sucks. Like, I know a million Maxes. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I've met that guy. I've been at the office with that guy with the rich hot wife who's still like, what are you up to? Like, I know that guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, I'm just like, this guy.
But are they in a sugar daddy app where they're actively like fucking and giving money to women?
Probably. Like, I don't know their life, but probably.
Trace, you listed 5 apps at a finger touch.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yes, they absolutely
are.
are.
To the city before a commuter train bounces? Like, there's a million of this guy.
BRB, making my sugar goo profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Danielle's parents. Her father is Joel, played by Fred Malamed, and her mother is Debbie, played by the wonderful Polly Draper. I think that she is kind of the unheralded, or maybe she was recognized. It was hard to tell after the fact who got a lot of praise for this. Obviously, people singled out Sennett, but I really found Polly Draper to be the quiet hero of this movie.
Outside of Sennett's character, she gets, I think, some of the best, like, subtle emotional beats in the film.
I love this character in ways that, like, I'm about to give this away for free. Like, as soon as Shiva Baby has a resurgence, you'll hear me about it somewhere. I love this character. The reason why I love her so much is that the Jewish mother has been portrayed very specifically. We have, like, think about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Oh, God,
think
yes.
about Difficult People.
Oh, Andrew Martin, yeah.
The Jewish mother trope, which exists, those are just, like, 2 quick examples. There's a million of them.
Are those offensive examples for you?
So, not necessarily offensive, but I think there's a very specific version of the Jewish mother. Like, they're naggy, they're nitpicky, they're critical. What do you look like? What are you eating? Who are you dating? What's your new job? And in these movies, it's very often portrayed as, like, incredibly negative and tearing their children down. Right. So, like, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I mean, I haven't watched all of the show, so it could just be the specific parts that I've seen, but, like, you would think that, like, she hates her. Yeah. And, like, they're tearing her down constantly, but they are very critical, and I don't remember what show it was, to be really honest with you, but there was some Jewish mother gag, and I was watching it with my mom, and I laughed, and she winced, and I was like, oh no. And I had this moment of like, oh no, Mom, no, I don't think that about you. And I think what I love so much about this character is that she's still naggy, she's still nitpicky, she's still a pain, but she's coming from a very loving place.
Yeah.
Right.
she even talks about, like, even when she's critical of her queerness, she's still like, look, I'm open-minded, I just want you to be happy, which I think is just, like, an interesting, like, I don't know, maybe that one's kind of homophobic, but, like,
No,
I guess maybe that one's
You're
not a
fine.
good example.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, well, but just, like, even when she talks about work with her, she's not being dismissive of the work she does, and she's not shitting on her or telling her she's never going to be successful. She's just being like, oh, you actually like writing. Okay, you want to be a writer. Great. How can I help you with that? So even though it manifests as this naggy, being like, can you get our job in publishing and blah, 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 it manifests in this naggy, critical, weird way. It's coming from a place of, like, love and wanting to help her daughter. And I think that, like, that element struck me so much, and I just love this character for that, because she's still that quote trope, but it's so much more positive. And I don't know if that's, I don't know, I love this character for that reason.
Yeah. Whereas I think Melamed has less to work with because he's not as much, I mean, but Fred Melamed is just like, I feel like he always plays this type of character.
Yeah, but he's the
plays
guy.
An asshole. Yeah.
He's the guy. Like, he's the guy. Like, the idea, when he shows up as the dad, you're like, I know exactly what I'm about to watch.
I definitely thought it was Stephen Tobolowsky for a moment.
Oh my God.
Yes.
He, like, I think A Serious Man is, like, when he came to prominence because, like, also another big, like, Jewish movie.
Right.
He played the dad in that, oh my God, the Michaela Watkins show, Casual, on Hulu.
Oh, I love that's how I know him. Thank you, Trace. Folks, Casual is such a good show.
Great show. He's an asshole in that show, though.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's an asshole in that show.
That's true.
So the fun thing about the relationship between Danielle and her parents, like, again, as a bit of an outsider to the culture, I love that she shows up and they almost have a group brainstorm. Like, everybody put your head in. What's the cover story? What is Danielle going to say about her future? Because we know everybody's going to talk about it. And fuck, there's Catherine, who is played by Glynis Bell, and her daughter Maya, played by Molly Gordon. And we both know that Maya is doing way better, quote unquote, right now. So we need to get a cover story ready.
I will say, so Molly Gordon's having quite a year this year, because not only was she in, like, you know, season 2 of The Bear, playing the love interest of the lead character, she starred in, co-wrote, and co-directed Theater Camp.
Oh,
and people are, like, going bonkers for that. I haven't seen
really
it,
good.
But yeah, people seem very excited about it.
I caught it back at Sundance, and it's really, really, really cute.
Especially if you have a theater background.
Yes.
It's that kind of thing where they understand what these kinds of people are like. I think for some folks, it's going to be a little grating because the characters are big.
But, like, I know all of those characters.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, yeah, every character in this movie.
Yeah.
I know Maya, you know?
100%. There we go. Okay, so we head inside, and yes, immediately we are confronted with some older women who are gossiping. This includes Susan, played by the aforementioned Jackie Hoffman, and particularly because Danielle and Maya enter at the same time, it feels like they're often the subject of conversation. We don't understand that they have had a sexual relationship, so we think that it's more combative, like, okay,
like
everybody always compares us. Yes, the rivals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they catch up at the buffet, and Maya makes it very clear that she knows Danielle was not at the funeral. Like, she lays out some traps, and Danielle promptly falls into them.
Oh, the exchange of, like...
What was your favorite part?
I'm not thrilled. I'm grieving. It's a funeral. I know. I'm sad, too.
God. Trying to one-up each other on the grief spectrum.
Oh, obsessed. This is what I'm saying. No. So great.
The moment that I really like, because, yeah, as you said, Lindsay, one of the things that we come to expect from the Jewish mother is that they will always make comments about the weight and the appearance of their daughters, and particularly around issues of food. So it's fun is the wrong word, but watching Danielle try to figure out whether she actually is hungry and whether she wants to eat whatever is at this buffet, like putting things onto the plate, putting them off the plate, scooping things on, scooping it off.
Yes, and everyone, like, I love the joke I will, like, yell in my mom's face every time she slips up. Is where she's like, what are you doing, hanging out with all your friends and not eating?
Oh.
Or whatever she says, like, there's some, like, joke about that, like, so what do you do all day, just hang out with your friends and not eat, or whatever. But it's not her mother who says that. It makes me laugh so much, because it's true, like, everybody within like 10 minutes, everyone's gonna tell you how fat you are and how skinny you are.
Right.
But also, like, it is the only thing to talk about. Like, she is so worried about her cover story about school, but if you realize, like, it's her parents that are talking about school, everybody else is talking about what she looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, though, because, I mean, look, Rachel Sennett is not a fat person, but she's also not, like, Dianna Agron skinny. Because if we had someone that looked like Dianna Agron in this role, then, like, the joke wouldn't land. But just, like, I feel like every 5 minutes we get a comment about her weight.
Oh, yeah.
But also, let's be clear, Dianna Agron is very skinny. Like,
Yeah,
she
that's
is
what I mean.
Hollywood skinny, and Rachel Sennett is also skinny.
She's massively, like, she's intensely petite, but it goes back to kind of what I was talking about, like, how appearance is so important to this role, but Sennett kind of has that build. Like, I know, not all Jewish women are built the same, but, like, I know a lot of Jewish women that have that exact body type where, like, from one angle you'd be like, oh my gosh, she's so skinny, she's not eating, my goodness. And then from another angle, like, you'd be like, oh, well, she doesn't look like Dianna Agron. You know what I mean? Like, it works for that exact reason that she is that shape where, like, she's short, she's not massively long and lean, but she's still incredibly, like, slender.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And, like, and she's hot. Like, it's important that she's also very hot. But she's got a different body type than, like, that specific hot, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
No, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
She's not Maxim model hot, which is what Hollywood always tries to force feed us into believing, oh, this is obtainable. Most women should look like this.
Right. And so, like, yeah, that's what, like, just works so well about her build, is that she's, like, feels the need to look at Kim Beckett, who, my God, is so perfectly named. and be like, ugh, she's vanilla, she's bland, she's boring, who cares?
Okay, I like that character, so I feel so bad for the Kim character.
Oh my God.
The Kim character is the most put upon.
Yeah.
Okay, so things seem to be going okay. You know, Danielle is managing, but then Max walks into the Shiva, and her parents immediately gravitate to him, so they're forced to awkwardly invent a lie about how they know each other. She also keeps getting caught up in other lies, such as she has a babysitting gig. Just one, like a singular babysitting gig.
With no schedule.
With no schedule. That no one understands.
He's the baby.
Yeah. And again, like, the score keeps kicking in, because, I mean, because, Joe, did you know, like, the general plot of this movie before you started watching it? Like, did you know this was going to be a thing?
I knew that it was set at a Shiva, and that I didn't realize that she had a bunch of lies and different things that she was trying to protect. I thought it was just she goes in and people keep, I was going to say harassing, but I thought that it was that she goes in and she has to deal with very intrusive family members that she doesn't want to deal with. And I thought that's where the anxiety comes from.
And it does.
It does.
On top of this,
apt.
like, oh, her sugar daddy is here with his wife and baby. And this is when, like the score will really start kicking in here. And then we have just a lot of these scenes that we'll go through moving forward is just like Rachel Sennett in the middle as we just hear all this chatter and the score building and building and building, as we almost get like a bunch of slow zooms into Sennett's face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's always being crowded by people, so it emphasizes how small she looks, and how frazzled. Like, I think even her body language is such that she often looks like she's looking down, or she just kind of looks like she's being consumed by everyone else at the Shiva.
Yeah.
She's always looking for an out. Like, she's always, again, like, not to keep being like, this is just like me, but that feeling of, like, she's looking side to side for, like, anyone to save her and anything else to do. Like, she's like, yeah, I'll clean up this puke so that I can move from this location. Like, I want to be out of here. She takes a long time in the bathroom because she's messing around with her phone or whatever, but she's like, I need a break. I feel like there's a lot of that. You really sense and feel that her eyes are shifting side to side, not because she can't focus, whatever. It's that she's just, like, looking for an exit strategy from this particular moment, and there is no exit.
No.
That's the thing, is like, there's a part later where it's like she's leaving literally every, like, 5 seconds, like, someone comes across and is like, oh, hey, like, let's catch up, and you're like, I feel so like bad for her because I'm just like, oh my God, like, girl, get out.
The part that my parents watched it after me and I would like report back and they had like a few things they pointed out. But the one thing that they came to me was like, and you can never leave. You try to leave and everybody needs to say goodbye to you for like an hour. Like you plan to leave an hour before you have to leave because you got to be like, we're going to head going. I'm going to go upstairs, say goodbye to Zadie. I'm going to pop in and say hello to Auntie Shirley. I'm going to pop by Cousin Ruthie and then we'll get out of here. Like it's just, you're doing a lap. You have to do a lap to get out.
See, to fall on the sort of another cultural stereotype, this is why I am the king of Irish goodbyes. I don't tell anybody shit. You're looking for me? I've been gone an hour.
Oh my God. That's rude.
No, it isn't, because you know what? I know all of you. I will talk to you later. I'll see you at brunch tomorrow. We've got that movie date next week. I don't need to say goodbye. You're plastered. You're not going to miss me. I'm out of here.
Not your choice. Come to a Shiva, you're not getting out of there for an hour. It's like, remember at the Gap, used to be like, how long can you go before an employee says hi to you?
Oh.
Remember that game?
2
like,
seconds.
Good luck. Getting out of a Shiva without someone stopping you. Good luck.
I love it. Yeah, so Danielle is mostly holding her own, apart from the fact that she cannot keep her cover story together at all. I do love all of the debate about what her major is. So, you know, she gets very upset when people try to say, oh, you're in gender studies or you're a feminist. What are you going to do for a job with that? Like,
it's not a career, it's a lens.
I love that.
Through which to see my career.
It's funny because I feel like anybody who actually went through an arts degree has had to have these kinds of conversations. So even though the movie is so Jewish in a lot of ways, the movie is also speaking to millennials who were struggling with, like, how do I talk about the job that my parents didn't want me to get a degree in? And, oh, you know, I'm having difficulty communicating with my friends because we made out that one point and then now we don't text each other. Like, there's just a lot of really relatable stuff embedded within a very predominantly Jewish text.
Hello, Joe, when you tell people, when someone's like, hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm a podcaster.
Oh, God.
How embarrassing. How cringe. What a nightmare.
So true.
Yeah, you and everybody else.
I get like on the defense immediately. I'm like, oh, well, you know, like, I have a day job, but actually my real job is podcasting. And I have to defend it. Like, I actually make like more money podcasting than I do for my day job. But it's like, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I just wish I could just say podcaster and be fine with it.
Yeah.
I know. Why are we like that? Even when people are like, oh, you write about movies? I'm like, yes. And they're like, oh, and you're like, no. Like, oh, my son loves movies. Like,
that must be so cute.
That's great. But yeah, but I love that you say that, Joe, because when I saw this movie again, one of the things my mom said was like, who is this movie for? It's for Toronto Jews. And I was like, I know, right? It's so specific. And was like, and we both were like, who is going to like this movie except for us and like, you know, all people in my like third cousins. And then to see everybody wrap themselves around it so much, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And Joe, exactly what you said. People were like, it's the millennial experience of jobs and parental stress and kind of the failure to launch and thinly veiling your queerness in certain ways and your relationships. And I was like, oh, yeah, duh, it's a very universal experience. It's just the setting happens to be very Jewish, but the experience is very universal.
Yes. Yes, the other target audience for this movie is people who like Darren Aronofsky's mother.
Oh my God, how dare you? How dare you? It's an apt comparison, and I'm angry about it.
But that's the Christian version of this movie.
Yes.
Aronofsky. Oh, don't. I can't. I'm going to get upset. I don't want to talk about it.
I'm just saying, it's a double bill and you take your anxiety meds in between films.
God.
Yeah. Ugh, gag. Oh, God. Yep.
All right. Well, why don't we introduce the Shiksa princess herself? So, as Danielle is standing there eating her bagel and Lux, she overhears Max talking about his new baby, Rose, who she clearly did not know existed.
Okay.
And then in through the door walks his wife, Kim, played by Dianna Agron.
She didn't know he was married, and that was a big bombshell for her. And then she finds out he's got an 18-month-old baby.
Yeah.
It was interesting because I was trying to figure out whether he's a regular client of hers, because initially I didn't really pick up so much on the sex work, you know.
Right.
when we get the messages on her phone later on, it definitely clicked. But at the time, I just thought she was having an affair with this guy. I didn't realize anything more was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the money, but I also thought that he was kind of just being a generous sugar daddy.
That's what I thought too, honestly.
I got a similar vibe too. Like, I kind of thought it was, it was kind of vague. I do agree. But I do think that the implications are like where she keeps saying she's the one babysitting job with a random schedule that, and that's like in that moment, it's him weaponizing like, oh, you're only seeing me. Like you're acting like you're out here as a sex worker, but you're only seeing me. And then he even throws in that dig of like, you might be saving this for later, but he throws in that dig of like, oh, you must really love that kid.
Mm-hmm.
To be like, you love me. And it's like, gross, but you know.
Yeah.
But also she can't stop fucking looking at him to the point that even her mother picks up on it and warns her, don't go there.
But that's the thing, though. I'm kind of like, girl, like, if you're going to be a sex worker, you can't, fucking Pretty Woman rules. Like, don't kiss in the mouth. Like, don't get personally involved.
Yes, Pretty Woman rules.
Pretty Woman rules.
Jesus.
I think, I don't know. I don't want to skip ahead too much, so stop me if I am.
No, you're fine. Go for it.
Fine. I think it's supposed to be implied that, like, she's only seeing him. She must really like him. And then there's kind of but she's also getting messages on the app, so she might be maybe seeing other people unless the implication is that those are from him. I don't know.
Right.
But I kind of read that as, like, so much of the movie is her struggling with, do I need to reconcile that I'm going to go to law school like Maya, and, like, do I need to be this Jewish woman ideal, or am I not? I'm different. I'm this, I'm that. Right. And I think he represents that because he is the Jewish ideal. He's the guy with the job and the baby and the house, and he goes to shul, and he's the guy that, like, if he was around, like, you even hear the women saying, like, oh, you know, a perfect Jewish man like him, and he had to date a shiksa. Like, he could have had anybody he wanted, and, like, they're all, like, hullishing, or forgive me, for him. Like, they all love him, because he's perfect, and she's kind of in that way, like, she's got the, quote, perfect Jewish guy, and then, but it's not real. It's pretend. She's just, you know, it's a job. And so there's that struggle. And then also she's seeing this perfect Jewish ideal that everyone else is going, he is so perfect. Kim is the luckiest woman alive. He's so perfect. And she's like, ew, he's some, like, gross trash dude who's cheating on his wife with this young baby. Like, he's got the most beautiful, and successful wife in the world. And he's doing this, like, he's so nasty. And so there's that, like, struggle of, like, I don't know, I really see it as, like, she's the ideal, but she's not, and he's the ideal, but he's not, and, like, what really is the ideal if she's supposedly not, but then she's actually, like, the good girl and, like, a nice relationship with Maya, compared to, like, this guy who's, like, the perfect guy with a corporate job and the wife and the baby, but, like, actually he's kind of shitty and mean and a liar and all this. So I don't know.
And I think, at least on a first time watch, I think part of the fun, quote unquote, of watching this is trying to figure out how she feels about this. Because when she sees it, it's like, okay, well, did she feel betrayed by him? Or does she feel bad for Kim and this baby? And then she gets more and more immature. It's like, oh no, because then she starts trying to make Kim jealous. And it's like, oh my God, girl.
I mean, she's complex,
she's
right? Like,
young
I
and
think
confused.
If you read interviews with Sennett and Seligman, they both talk about how they really wanted to make a complicated, messy, bisexual Jewish woman the main character of this film. And I think they succeed admirably in that. Like, as you said, Lindsay, you know, there's this ideal kind of veneer around Max as well as Kim, but most people are probably closer to Danielle, where they're just trying to figure their shit out and they have not got it together.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, too, like, while Danielle can be a frustrating character, I never once find her unlikable, and I'm always rooting for her, even when she's at her kind of, like, most unlikable.
Totally.
We question her decisions, but we always want her to come out on top.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, just in case you thought, they're not talking about anything horrific, when are the bodies going to start to drop or something like that? Let me direct your attention to the moment when she gets impaled by a nail in the leg, and then she goes in, she makes some, in my opinion, ill-conceived decisions to take a topless picture and send it to Max, and then she forgets her phone unlocked. But also, there is a literal jump scare when she comes out of the bathroom from a guy who needs to poop. That is the genius of this movie.
Another Shiva staple is the guy who needs to poop.
There's two, because he's like, oh, is there a fan or an open window? But then later we find out the toilet's been clogged. Is it from the same guy? I don't know.
Has to be.
But the whole place smells like shit.
Who knows? There's a lot of bagels and cream cheese floating around and a lot of lactose intolerant people. There
that is true.
There are poops
I just
ablaze.
love a poop joke so much, especially when it's delivered like this, right? It's unexpected, it's out of the blue, and it's not gross because it's not like he says, oh, I need to shit. He just says, yeah, is there a fan or a window in there? And we all know what he's talking about.
I don't know. Like, we're super, as a people, we're very cavalier about our poops. It just is, it's just, it's not, we'll talk about it. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, it's just a very,
everybody poops.
Everybody poops.
Everybody
so
poops.
It's also, like, funny because you kind of are like, oh my God, how embarrassing. But, like, that's not embarrassing. Like, I'm like, yeah, there's a fan. Like, I'd be like, I don't know if it's working. Like, it's just really no big deal.
And we also, because we have a lot of moments too where Danielle is like kind of staring at Max from across the way, and we get music stingers when he looks up and their eyes meet. And again, it feels like a horror movie thing where it's like, oh my God, the killer sees me.
Yes.
Yeah, another good moment of horror is when Danielle gets trapped in this conversation between Catherine and Maya, and they're just talking about, okay, what are you going to do with your job in women's studies or gender studies? And she just starts downing the wine more and more aggressively. And whenever I see characters start compulsively drinking, I really get worried because that they're going to make an ass of themselves, or they're going to spill, or something awful is on the horizon.
Yeah. Do you speak from personal experience?
I've been to a couple of parties.
I just want to make it known. Whenever I'm with Joe and I'm like, let's take a shot, he's like, no, I don't do that.
No, I have too many of those stories.
I've clutched to many a glass of wine, as a lifeline. And you're like, this will save me. But like, no, it won't.
No. Especially if you just start pounding them back, right? Because then you're not even paying attention. You're like, I'm so anxious, but I'm just, oh shit, how many of these have I drunk?
Yeah, wine can't save you.
This movie does the rare thing of making wine look unappetizing to me.
Yeah. Well,
it's like the fingerprinty glass. It's hot.
Yes!
Yes, that's such a good point, is that it's hot, Joe. You're so right. But I also feel like the fingerprinty glass and it's being, like, clutched from the outside. Like,
and Senate looks like she's about to shatter this glass. She is holding it so tight. And meanwhile, yeah, you're right, Trey. She is staring at Max. He is meeting her gaze, but Maya is also picking up on this, mistaking it, thinking she's looking at Kim because, lo and behold, these are bisexuals. They have a history. Maya is jealous of her, which is why when Daniel goes in to clean up the baby vomit, Maya agrees to accompany her. And then, of course, we get physical comedy in this movie where both of their mothers misinterpret their body language and think that they're maybe fucking.
Yes. Well, and also because even for Maya, because Maya isn't like, she doesn't get as much like development as Senna does, obviously.
I wish we got a bit more of Maya.
I agree. And she's a character that was not in the short. She was invented for this film.
Oh.
But it's not just you want this other girl, you want this shiksa girl.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because that is a big deal, isn't it, Lindsay? Like a lot of marginalized communities. Do we even say Jewish people? Yes. Like a lot of marginalized... This is one of those things. Trace caught me recently on a Patreon episode where I was like, the Greeks, people of color. And he was like, I'm going to have to fact check that. But
I did.
Yes,
but basically, what I'm saying
group.
is that we like to keep things within communities, right? And particularly, I feel like that's a prominent Jewish narrative where you're supposed to marry a nice Jewish boy or girl, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly the gag of, like, the nice Jewish boy, nice Jewish girl. A lot of people's parents insist that they must marry a Jew. I get asked that a lot. Like, would your parents insist you marry a Jewish person? And that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and, like, that's kind of part of it. Like, all of them being like, oh, what a shame he could have... I don't know if they say what a shame, but all the women being like, he can have any Jewish woman he wants and he marries a shiksa. Like, ugh, God, you know. There is that element. I don't think it's as prominent as it once was, but, like, certainly. Like, I mean, I think... for a lot of marginalized groups, it's very like, you know, we're a small group. There aren't that many of us, so we have to make more of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's also that piece. And then, you know, people ask me, like, what are my thoughts? And I'm like, well, it'd just be easier if I didn't have to, like, explain Rosh Hashanah to somebody and if I didn't have to, like, say, sorry, I can't come to Christmas, I'm going to Hanukkah, like, I'd rather not deal with that. But, like,
sure,
you know, I don't think, I don't know, it sort of depends. But yeah, there's definitely that like, oh God, what a shame. But I don't know, I laugh, like, my brother's married to a quote shiksa who is like very much that looks like Dianna Agron, and like her name is the same like syllables, and like her name is very similar to Kim Beckett. And so when we saw that, we were both just like, I watched it with her to be like, LOL. Like, that's you, girl.
That's you.
You're
that's
the blonde
representation on the screen.
You're the sunshiny blonde who walks into the show, and everybody's like, who's that? What is she doing here?
You're Malibu Barbie.
Yeah, we're just like, she can't possibly be. Anyway, so yeah, there's a piece of that, kind of like the shiksa appeal. There's also an old Seinfeld episode about shiksa appeal, which might be some interesting further reading.
All right.
Yeah.
So what do we think about the fact that Danielle uses the opportunity when Maya sort of presses her, you know, why are you so interested in blah, blah, blah. Danielle uses this as an opportunity to tear Kim down, even though we learn that she's a very successful entrepreneur. She's got 3 businesses.
I really like that beat. I've kind of touched on it a lot, like the beauty ideal piece. Like, Rachel Sennett could be the hottest version of herself that's ever existed, and she is. Like we've said this a million times already, Rachel Sennett is massively hot. But she'll never look like Dianna Agron, and of course Rachel Sennett is not Jewish, but there are a lot of like stunning Jewish women who will just never look like Dianna Agron, no matter what they do. I mean, you know, yes, there are Scarlett Johanssons out there, so don't get me wrong, it isn't impossible. But the, you know, sort of typical appearance that you associate it, it's an ideal that like we can't possibly have. So it's very easy to sort of turn that, you know, the white, Eurocentric, blonde, blah, blah, blah. It's very easy to turn the fawning of that beauty ideal into like, who cares? That's what everybody looks like. I guess if you're interested in the same carbon copy, boring, whatever, it's very easy to go there. So I really love that conversation, because I actually think, even though it's pretty like glib and short, I think it's a really interesting conversation about a woman who knows she can never meet a certain beauty ideal and then tearing down another woman, and then Maya calls her like, well, that's not very feminist of you, and it's like, wait, and then it's like, wait, who's being hurt here? Women, white women, like, wait, hold on. And I love it. It's just like a two girls being bitches to each other conversation, and it's actually like really layered and complicated. And
and that line of dialogue she gives is, you're projecting a lot of misogyny for a future Women's March organizer.
It's got a great comedic joke to it too, right?
I will say this though, like, I guess because I still view Dianna Agron as like teenager Quinn Fabray on Glee, and she's 37 years old, and she looks amazing.
She was old on Glee. Old. I'm using scare
like
quotes
older
now.
than she played.
She was one of the older cast members, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I really like her. If you actually read it, because like about her, like, she's very selective about the project she picks now, because she looks for things with different angles, and she was very excited to get this movie because it was her first like movie from like a Jewish perspective about Jewish people. Yeah,
I think I saw that, which I love, especially from the perspective, like, knowing who she's playing and then that being her perspective is so interesting. And I love the way she plays it. Like, she's super sunny and sunshiny, and it's so, like, even when she's mad, she's sunny, which is like, so the version that like Jews aren't. Like, when we're mad, we're really mad. Like, Danielle looks mad for a lot of this movie, where Kim never does. She, like, behind her eyes, she's kind of like, oh, how do you two know each other? With like the most sunshiny tone. Like, she's so perfect in her cadence. She's like, I'm Kim Beckett, like almost like
sing-songy.
She's sing-songy, and then she almost like just like a cadence, like it's like a 1% accent of just like, I might be British, I don't know, like just a little bit. I love that.
When do y'all think she figures it out?
I think the bracelet.
So you think it's like this next scene with the bracelet?
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty telltale sign. We're given every indication that the bracelet is not super common because it is so high end, which to me seems like a huge mistake on Max's part. Like, what the fuck are you doing giving your mistress the exact same bracelet.
Yeah.
It's like, these women are not interchangeable.
Have you met straight men?
I mean, yes.
Are you familiar?
Walking penises? Yes.
Like, but this moment, though, where she notices the bracelet, and like I have in my notes all caps, then Kim notices the bracelet because she has the same one. Oh my god, it's a new collection, so she couldn't have gotten it in high school.
I love that Danielle's parents zero in on how much it costs. Like, wait, are we paying for that? Because, of course, she's trying to spin the lie.
Yes. Just like the way all of this just builds into an eventual crescendo is so masterfully done.
I think she knows really quickly, and I think there's also the implication that, like, this is not the first.
Yeah.
This won't be the last, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she knows what she's in, and she's kind of like, oh god, this shit again. How humiliating.
That's that's the impression I got as well. Like, because she's not presenting upset enough for how you would think someone would react to the situation. But she's a girl
we're going to
boss.
have a conversation about this at home later because this is the 5th time.
Yeah.
I also love, I mean, this is again the very end, but whenever like they walk outside and she just goes, Jesus Christ. And I was like, I love that the Gentile and the one is like just yelling Jesus Christ at the Shiva.
She waited until they got outside, though.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So, Trace, you talked about how this crescendos, it really builds and builds and builds. And that's also because Max has apparently gotten within cell reception area of Danielle's phone because he just starts getting all of these messages on his. And of course, this is when we get the near collision where he ends up spilling coffee all over Danielle, but also his baby.
Yeah. This crying fucking baby.
Yeah, the baby's been crying the whole time since it came in the house. So this is actually when I think we get the best scene between Danielle and Debbie. So mother takes daughter aside so that we can use... I put communal water, but I don't think that's right, Lindsay.
I looked this up, actually. But go ahead, Lindsay.
No, I want to hear what you found.
It's something about how you're supposed to, like, clean your hands when you walk into the house where the Shiva's being held, right?
That's right. Yeah. So there's these, like, oh my gosh, Shivas are a whole thing. But yeah, there's, you're supposed to, wash your hands, but it's usually just like you splash a little bit of water on your hands on the way in is usually what people do. So there's just like a bin with like a cup and paper towel outside the house, usually.
But has it been blessed by a rabbi in the same way that we would expect in Catholicism? Or is it just water?
I don't think so. I'm quite confident it's just water.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's I don't know, there's like a lot of Shiva staples. There's like Shiva companies, and they'll like rock up with like, they've got all the gear that you need, and one of them is these like, you'll see them either some things people have plastic bins and then they like sit on this like fold out cardboard thing that's got like a paper towel roll in it, like they're ready to rock. You're supposed to rinse off your hands. I'm actually not sure.
You're blowing my mind with this. Like, of course there would be Shiva companies because people are dying all the time, but it's just like, I never would have thought that would be a thing.
Oh, it's a thing. There's like gear that you get like at the, like you're leaving the funeral and they're like, okay, here's your ribbon and here's your matches and here's your mirror spray and you're like, yeah, like throw it in the bag, let's go. Like all your gear that you need for the Shiva. Shiva coffee is like a staple. It's also why I love it's the coffee, that there's like urns of coffee being filled up.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, well, maybe this is just me, a personal experience, but one of the things about when you're the one like living at the Shiva is you're so used to this like constant flow of coffee that like when it's gone, you're like, where's the coffee?
It's here all the time.
That was here 24/7 for the past 7 days. Like
that's why everyone's shitting at these Shivas.
I was gonna
that's
say.
why everybody's shitting. So when the coffee gets spilled on her, I was like, of course he has Shiva coffee. Like, of course he does.
Mm-hmm. So the scene between Debbie and Danielle is actually really, really tender. You know, Danielle, at times she's infantilized by her parents, but I think that's partially how they show love, right? Like they want to protect her, they give her money. Importantly enough, Debbie, in a later scene, will say, well, you know, you could always just move back in.
Oh,
so.
No!
I mean, relatable content for nearly anybody who's ever had to deal with a parent potentially saying that. But I love this really tender moment between the two of them. But I wonder, did the two of you get the impression that Debbie misconstrues why Danielle is upset and thinks that she's pregnant?
Yeah. 100%.
Oh, nope.
Oh, okay.
But maybe, like, now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh, shit, okay. Because I also didn't pick up on the, like, sugar baby stuff right away either. So, yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. That's probably what it was. Yeah, no, I didn't pick up on that.
But there's something so cathartic when Danielle's like, are you disappointed in me? Like,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
so relatable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it really drives home, like, even by that point, you're already there. But it, again, drives home that, like, her mother's like, what? Why? How could you think that? Like, just because I nag you all the time, you know?
Right.
And it just drives home that, like, just because she's, like, naggy and annoying, she's still just like, what do you mean? I love you. You're perfect. Like, I don't know. I love that moment.
It's so sweet. Yeah. The two of them have great chemistry, which doesn't hurt.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Very true.
Okay, so we've got some shit Max to deal with because he introduces himself to Maya. It's funny, right? Because everyone keeps talking about how Maya and Danielle look sort of similar. So Max ends up suggesting, hey, are you two sisters? Are you related in some way? And then when he finds out that they went to prom together, he speculates about all the trouble they got up to. And I feel like Maya clocks how douchey he is because she plays into it. I don't think she's faking when she talks about giving Danielle her first orgasm, but she also didn't have to be that candid.
Yeah, I think it's very much just like, oh yeah, you like this bitch? Like, yeah.
She's also, she's just like, and we like fucked. It's like very loud in this room.
Very loud.
Yeah. I also think she's maybe putting together their situation and she's a little jealous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I
She's
definitely
like,
think so.
You think you did shit? Well, I was there first.
There's so much eye acting in this movie. On top of like the constant talking, there's still so much being said behind people's eyes.
So this is when Max basically finds out, because, you know, we flash back to the beginning. We don't literally flash back. I flash back to the beginning when, oh, right, okay, there was the transactional sex, but also Danielle has kind of been peddling that she is a female entrepreneur and that she is maybe getting her law degree and so on. And clearly that's what Max thought he was giving her money for. So when he finds out that she's also been getting money from her parents, and he found out earlier that she doesn't pay a lot of bills, he gets a little lippy, right?
Which,
so
dude, you're a client. Back off.
You don't get ownership over her in this way.
But this is some, like, nice guy ass bullshit, though. Like, nice guy with a capital N and a capital G, because nice guys are all about, like, oh, what I'm doing is, me cheating on my wife is heroic. Like, it goes back to that bit about, you know, him being like, I'm supporting female entrepreneurs, and we're all like, yeah. It's like, that's him being like, oh, I know that you think that what I'm doing is going behind my wife's back and whatever, but what I'm actually doing is supporting young female entrepreneurs, and I believe in sex work because I'm a feminist. And I'm like, bro, please.
Right, all of that.
But don't we think he's doing this anyway because he feels emasculated by the fact that his wife is the breadwinner of the house?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely, like,
too.
there's definitely a big part of that.
Yeah. Well, because even there's a moment later where Kim admits, oh, and we're trying for a second child. You know, that's part of the reason why we had to move and all these other things. And I mean, some of this is power play action, right? They could actually be trying, but the fact that Kim chooses when to say that is important. But you very much do get the feeling that Max is probably feeling trapped by this, right? It's one of the reasons he's acting out, because he wants power. He wants to own a woman by giving her money for sex. But also, I never got the impression he liked baby number one. So the idea of having a second baby in the mix, not good.
Yeah. Also, we just couldn't give up the Soho apartment. I mean, the location is so good.
Like, yeah, same. I know.
Prime douche.
Totally get it. That was Kim. Like, I mean, I do believe that they were quote unquote trying, but that was Kim putting her stink on her man. That was her being like, I know what's going on here, but he's mine. He will come home with me, and we will be having a second baby. You will always be his side piece. Like, that's what Kim was really trying to drive home. Like, you are his trash side piece, nobody, and I'm his wife, and we're going to have another baby.
So, like, I know it's not the point, but I actually, especially given how the film ends, but I really do wish there could have been a heart-to-heart between Danielle and Kim, where she's like, look, I didn't know.
No.
It's not that kind of movie.
No, it's not. Because, I mean, yeah, it's not the point. But it's just a thing where I'm like, it's kind of a misunderstanding, but it's not a misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. But it's like, Danielle wasn't, like, willingly doing this to Kim because she had no fucking clue about any of this, but...
Yeah, but it's kind of like the oldest story in the book that the
other woman.
Like, you blame the other woman because you don't want to end your relationship that you have. So it has to be her fault. It can't be his fault because then my marriage isn't tenable. And, like, this version of Kim's life is some version of what she wants because she wants the husband in the house and the Soho apartment and the 2 kids. Yep. Presumably, we don't know a ton about her. But it's easier to blame the other person as the vixen who stole him away than to blame the person that you share a bed with and admit that, like, they might have been lying to you or whatever.
Yeah. So what do we make of... Because Danielle is such a fascinating character, right? Like, this moment after Max tries to engage her and Maya, and he's, being a grosso because, of course, 2 women together. Rah!
Hot, sexy.
But it is immediately followed with him more or less making eye contact with Danielle and then going upstairs, and she follows him, and then she starts to give him head until she spots the wedding ring. Is this a moment of maturity and growth, or is this, as you said, Trace, Daniel realizing, I didn't realize he was married and had a kid, and now I can't go through with this anymore.
Shit, I feel stupid. I didn't notice that she clocked the wedding ring. I thought that he was doing this to tease her and then stopped the blowjob, like, intentionally to fuck with her.
I thought it was both, to be honest. I read both of those into it. I think it could be both or either or, because I also read both of those into it, that he was kind of being a douche in that moment, too. Because she seems disappointed when he leaves, and it's like, is she disappointed because she can't go through with it, or is she disappointed because he was being like, fuck you?
Yeah,
I don't know. I do think it's possible it's both. I think it's a complicated moment for her. I think it's her being like...
Yeah.
She's in competition with Kim, and it's stupid. They shouldn't be in competition with each other, but they are, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's just like a gut reaction. Like, they've had like 1 minute to process this in a crowded room. So it's not like she's going home to be like, well, it's not like it's just a quick thing where everything about her from her perspective is being torn down. So like her esteem is on trial this whole time, and then this happens. So I just kind of feel like she's going through a lot, and we talked about like how she's super complicated, and so they're in competition. So she goes upstairs with this guy, and in a moment she's like, I'm winning. He wants me. Look at my lips and how badly he wants my lips on him. And like there's that shot of her lips, and she's given her like Rachel Sennett, classic pout. And she's like, you want these blowjob lips. And she's giving that in a way that like, I'm winning here. But then I think however it ends, whichever version of it that is, it's kind of like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
This is not a win, because him leaving isn't a win. Her doing it with him while she knows about his wedding ring and his wife and baby downstairs isn't her winning. Like I think it's just a lot of that. I don't know.
Yeah. And of course, in case you're wondering, for a first-time watch, all of this is very stressful. Like, every time Daniel goes into the bathroom, the anxiety really ratchets up for me, because she keeps doing very naughty things in the bathroom, and I kept waiting for this full house. Like, we keep getting people asking about the toilets and drinking coffee and eating food, and I'm like, she is going to be discovered. So I hated this scene, not just because of the moral complexity of it, but because I kept waiting for the door to get smashed open.
And honestly, it's a bit subversive to have that never happen. Like, but the suspense is always there.
Yes, always. Because we're waiting for all these secrets to come out. If not, why have you introduced a bunch of secrets in the narrative?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So speaking of one, obviously we've inferred quite a bit about the relationship between Danielle and Maya, but after this, she finally manages to get out of the house for a quick breather, and she and Maya finally have a bit of a, all right, let's break it down, and we get the confirmation that, yes, they had a bisexual experimentation, and then neither one of them kind of followed up with the other one. And I love... We're bickering across the alley, we yell, and then we smash kiss. It's very fun.
I love it.
Also, as they walk back inside, you hear a woman off screen go, "Look, she's eating."
Yes. Like, all eyes are on everyone at every moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone is watching who you're talking to, what you're talking about, what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's so
What you're
fun.
But
What you're eating.
I do root for Maya and Danielle in this. I mean, because that, even though
Sure.
like it may not be the end game of their lives, it is the end game of this film.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. We actually did jump over the scene where her mom sort of talks about this. It's after she comes out of cleaning the vomit up with Maya. I just wanted to give a couple of quotes from Seligman. So it's 2 different interviews, one with Slate and one with NYU Local. And Seligman says, I think a lot of older liberal-ish Jews are not even aware that they have these contradictions where they're accepting at large, but still don't really understand sexual fluidity and gender fluidity. And she was talking about both bisexuality and kind of transness. And then she says in another interview, I wanted to portray the way your family just doesn't really get bisexuality. They think you're experimenting or actually gay or whatever, but I'm also really tired of seeing that be the main conflict of a character's journey.
Well, I think also it's a thing too. I mean, because I don't know if you can relate to this, Joe, but it's a thing where it's like, you know, when you're growing up queer, you pay attention to how your parents react to other queer people, especially on television shows or movies. But it's like, oh, like, you know, and you're gauging that to be like, okay, cool. Like, are they okay with it enough to where I feel comfortable coming out to them? And I feel like a lot of times, or maybe I'm just projecting here, but like where it's like, okay, cool, my parents are fine with it. But then when you tell them, it's like, oh, no, it's fine if other people are queer, but not my child. My child can't be queer, you know? And that's kind of the vibe I get from her mom.
Yeah. I mean, I think the quote from Seligman is pretty telling. This idea of, I'm open to it, but it is different when it's your kid, or if you don't fit into a very narrow box, right? Like, I think we're in a day and age now where gay and lesbian are kind of, okay, I get that. I understand exactly what that means. You know, like, you like people of the same sex as you. But then bisexuality, like, there's quite a few interview quotes with Seligman where she talks about, bisexuality being, people think you're just horny and you want to fuck everybody, or you can't decide, or it's a gateway and you haven't figured out that you're actually fully gay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, throw pansexual, because I just, we're recording this like a couple days ago. Wayne Brady came out as pansexual, and when I tell you, I was like, I don't want to read the replies to these these articles
because people are awful.
Yeah.
But it's tricky, right? I mean, I think that her parents are fairly open-minded, as you said, Lindsay. I think they're actually very supportive of her in the usual sort of naggy, overbearing way. But it does seem very clear that the sexuality angle is the piece that her mother doesn't really get. And particularly when she says, you know, I was alive in the 80s. I've got great gaydar. And you're like, oh, that's a deflection. That's the kind of thing that someone would say.
But even in the climax for the film, like, there's a part where she's like, oh, yeah, you're going to do well. You should cheer me up. You're going to find a good man to take care of you. And I'm like, oh, you didn't say person. Like, you did not say person.
Yep.
I don't know that this is specific to the Jewish community. I know that that's sort of what I think you said Seligman said in the first quote. She mentioned that specifically.
Right.
I won't say that for sure if that's just like a generational thing or if it just happened to be the people that I know. So, like I said, I'm not queer, but I do have a lot of queer cousins and queer family members. And I remember when the first one of them of my generation came out, you know, there were mixed reactions, if that makes any sense. No one was massively negative, but it wasn't like an, oh, great, move on. Like, you know.
Pride parade.
It's not a party.
Yeah, yay, it's over. Like, big deal. And I remember talking to one of my relatives where I was saying, like, let's dig into this a bit. Like, what's going on here? And they said, I've got no problem. I'm progressive. I'm whatever.
Right.
But it's not a life I would wish on my kid. So I would be disappointed to hear that about my kid.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, it was such an interesting, it was an interesting moment because it's so easy to be like, and again, I deflect to you too, obviously. It's so easy to hear that and think like that's homophobic. But I think the point they were making was that like what they had experienced in their life was seeing queer people be marginalized. So they were saying like, I would be disappointed and upset to hear that because I don't want my kid to live through that. It's a hard life.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, interesting. So I kind of, maybe that's just a personal experience issue, but I kind of saw that a little here where they're like, it's not understanding. It's like, you can be whatever you want, whatever. But to have a happy life, you will marry a man, and you have 3 kids, and you'll be a lawyer.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to bring up a different movie here because, and this is a very controversial scene in this movie, but have y'all seen The Family Stone?
I have, but I could not remember that scene.
Yeah, and I've heard all about it and not seen it.
I love this movie. My husband hates it. But there is a scene where they're all at the dinner table, and there's one of the brothers he's deaf and he's gay, and his partner is a black man. But there's a part where Sarah Jessica Parker, who's like the interloper of the family because she's dating one of the brothers, Diane Keaton's like, oh, I wish all my children were gay. And Sarah Jessica Parker's like, you don't actually wish that, do you? Like, no one would wish that because it's a life of hardship. And I get, like, it does come, I get where she's coming from. I get what she's saying. It's exactly what you're saying, Lindsay, about where it's like, yeah, like, it's a harder life to be gay, but the whole family turns on her. And it's like, you're homophobic, you're horrible, you're awful, blah, blah, blah. And it's this big thing. And I was like, like, she shouldn't have said it, but I understand where she's coming from when she says that.
It's not as black and white. It's far more complicated.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely kind of felt a little bit of that when I came out. Like, I think I've told this story on the pod, but like my parents were both very open and accepting. And then a couple of weeks later, maybe a couple days later, I was out with my mom, and my mom saw someone who was very flamboyant and very femme. And she said, oh, I'm just glad that you're not like them.
Oh, yeah.
And then later on, she ended up telling my sister, well, I just really don't want him to get AIDS. And I was like, these are extreme reactions.
Yeah.
But I think, she was leaning too much into stereotypes. But I think also it was, these are the things that the media has told me are bad, and those people are more likely to attract danger, problems, a hard life, and so on. Like, you have to read between the lines, but, you know, the initial reaction is, holy shit, Mom, what the fuck? And then you take the step back and think, okay, I think part of it is she doesn't want me to die. She doesn't want me to get gay bashed.
Yeah, you have to look at the whole side. So I get what both of y'all are saying in all of these situations.
Yeah. And I think that's like really what this is sort of tapping into, because it's not, I mean, queerness is not the same thing as choosing a major. Do not get me wrong. So before I even like accidentally say that on your podcast, I do think it's like that's sort of the whole beat. Like, she's saying like, Mom, accept the career that I want. Her mom's going, I accept your career that you want, but like it's going to make you happier to have a money-making career.
Right.
And I accept the version of your life that you want, but it's going to, you know, or the things that you like is how she views it. I accept that you like women. I accept that sometimes you want to be with women. But at the end of the day, to be happy, these are the things that you're going to have. And I think that, like, it's sort of that confusion, which I think it's just, like, really, like, nuanced. Again, it seems like she's so naggy and terrible and horrible, but really it's coming from a place of, like, I just want you to be happy, where you're kind of like, Mom, I'm going to be happier if I'm my authentic self. Like, that sort of thing. And I think it's a really layered conversation.
Yeah. Speaking of layered, it's introduced here and will really pay it off at the end of the film. But Maya is, of course, the one who finds Danielle's unlocked phone, which means she's seeing all of the sugar baby phone messages. So when Danielle asks her, hey, have you seen my phone? Maya more or less threatens to out her to her parents and then calls her a fucking whore.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like an impulsive, like, I'm hurt reaction.
Yes, and I think it's also coming from a place of confusion. She doesn't entirely understand why Daniel would be doing this.
Yeah.
But we pay it off when they get out of the house and they actually have a conversation away from the prying eyes and ears of everyone at the Shiva. And I love the rationalization of, because I wanted to make money for myself and I wanted to feel powerful. Like, that is such a great fucking perspective on sex work.
But I think it also, the Maya reaction is also showing that even, like, Gen Z, who I think is, as a, generally is much more progressive, sexually fluid, accepting these types of things, sex work is still not...
it's totally stigmatized.
Yeah, it's still very stigmatized. I'm sorry. There is also a really good joke that we did skip, though, when they're looking at that Holocaust Museum pictures. She's like, you guys are at the Holocaust Museum. You look so... happy.
Oh god. Yep.
So the horror stuff does continue throughout all of this. I feel like we talked about it sporadically, but if you haven't seen the film, you have to understand it never goes away. It's very ebbs and flows, but there's this sequence where after Maya has called her a fucking whore, we see everyone eating in slow motion close-ups with like really powerful sound foley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Kim talks about having potentially a second child, this is when things really start to close in around Danielle. And the lighting even goes a little bit red. Like, she is properly in fucking hell. Like, we're like in a giallo here.
This is the moment where my friend, when we were watching it, was like, I think I need to pause this. Like...
Oh, it wasn't during the Baby Shake song?
Oh, wait, no, that is what it is.
It is, yes.
Yeah. No,
I was like, is this a hallucination? Is she having a waking nightmare? And to a certain extent, yes, because Daniel just has to flip out on everybody and yell at them to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. So this is when we do get the rabbi, who is played by Ariel Elias, reciting the
Rabbi.
Mourner's Kiddush.
The Mourner's Kaddish, yes.
Ah, thank you. Yes, things are not... You don't say them as they are spelled.
Sometimes. Yeah, say Mourner's Kaddish. Well, I don't know. That's what we say. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe there are some people who don't say it that way. But.
I mean, you corrected the way I was going to say bagels and lox, and you were like, no, we say lux. So
we hit everything with a U sound, a lot of us.
But is that Toronto specific or Canada specific?
I don't think so. There's like actually so a lot of like our A's and O's become U sounds, and it actually one that comes up a lot is Latka, which is spelled like Latke.
Oh yeah, I say latkes because
like the breakfast pastry thing,
well,
right?
No, the potato pancakes.
It's potato pancakes.
God damn it. Okay,
you were close. So we say latkes. And yeah, and then I remember hearing a couple people say latke, and I was like, what the are they saying? And I was like mad about it and was like, fake, they're not real, get off my TV, and was like really angry. And apparently it's a regional thing.
You're gonna love this, Lindsay. So all of like the Jewish knowledge that I got growing up.
Oh no, here we go.
I can't wait.
It was from Rugrats because
the
main, and there's a whole Passover episode, and I remember the grandparents talking about latkes, and so and again, it's like a children's cartoon about babies where the main family is a Jewish family.
Yes.
Isn't Rugrats Canadian?
I don't know if it's Canadian. It's Nickelodeon, I thought.
It's Nickelodeon, I don't know.
But it is Jewish, and the Passover episode is like mainstay.
Oh, yeah, Passover, I still remember that shit.
He's like watching in Hebrew school every year.
It's American, Joe.
I was wrong. It's American.
Okay, well, there you go. But yeah, like think about like when I was saying like lox is lux, like lucka is an A and an E, and both U sounds.
Well, they say latka in Rugrats.
Yeah, latka. I had one for lunch today.
Oh, delicious.
I've made latkes. Oh no, I had to make latkes once for something. Maybe it was like a cultural thing in one of my classes, but yeah, we had to make latkes. I don't know. I don't remember why.
Oh my god. I know it's like a very simple, like 3-ingredient recipe-ish, not actually, but like I am confident that mine are the greatest that have ever existed.
Oh, wow.
Like there's no doubt in my mind.
She's going there. Taste test.
Just like no problem. Anytime.
Anytime you want to make them for me, Lindsay, just let me know.
I'm there. I'm on my way.
Wait, what is the unleavened bread? Is there a name for that?
Matzah.
Matzah, okay.
Sometimes spelled with A, sometimes spelled like A and
matzah.
A, and sometimes A and O, but it's still matzah. You and you.
Well, speaking of all of this food, we do move into the kitchen because Max wants to have a private conversation with Danielle. Yes. And this is basically where he breaks things off. And everybody kind of gives a sigh of relief. Okay, maybe they're going to make it out of this without getting discovered. And then that's when they realize there's another person in the kitchen. So Mrs. Bronstein, played by Rita Gardner, overhears them, but she's deaf-ish.
This also is like a horror movie tracking shot where it's like, so like they tell her to go to the bathroom upstairs, and so the camera follows her, and as she does, all of a sudden, oh look, Kim is standing right there.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved this moment. It was so well executed.
Mm-hmm. And this exchange, this is like the big blow up between her and Kim, and because as y'all said, Kim never like gets angry really in this movie, but
this is the closest.
The line where because she's trying to get her to hold this baby, and she goes, "Well, it's not brain surgery, just hold her."
Because, of course, we have to remember that Danielle has been talking a big game about her babysitting gig the entire movie. We have set this up, this moment from the very beginning.
She's also testing it. She's like, girl, babysitting, yeah, right.
Yeah. Babysitting my husband with his dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will not lie. I almost had to look away when Max runs in and we have this fight over the baby, because I was just like, are we going to drop a baby in this movie? I cannot.
No. But
Edge of my seat.
It never happens. Just like no one ever walks into the bathroom. It never happens. But you are constantly like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, what is the worst possible thing that can happen right now?
Well, it's still a subversion, though, because we think the baby's going to go down and something does break. It's just a vase. It's not the baby.
Well, and it's the books, because the books are sacred and they fall on the floor.
Yes. And then they make the joke about fasting, which is very funny. Because there's like this old thing that like, if you drop a Sidora Torah on the ground, you have to like do a certain thing to repent, but and one of those things could be fasting. It's like the joke about like that's like 40 years of fasting. It's like, like it is real, but it's also like it is a real thing, but it's also one of those like Hebrew school urban legends where it's like, oh shit, the rabbi's gonna make you fast for 40 years. We're like, oh no.
It's like dropping the spirit stick and bring it on.
Yes,
exactly. Like, honestly, it's like when I saw that, I was like, oh, I get it, because like
Catholics don't have anything like that. We can draw Bibles, it's fine.
So you can drop the Siddur is like the printed, like the stack of books. You can drop those and you have to kiss them when you pick them up. But if you drop like the actual Torah, it's like you have to fast for 40 years, and it's like or 40 days or some whatever. Right. But like, I don't know, maybe it's real. There's probably someone listening who's like, Lindsay, it's very real. But I'm like, no, it's just like it's one of those like you know, old real things that like there was probably like a Bible story about someone doing it and persevering, but it's more just like the rabbi's gonna make you fast. It's bad. And you're like, oh no, I'm in so much trouble.
It's amazing.
Oh no, my luckas.
Oh no, I don't want to eat luckas or lux or matzah.
My lux and my luckas and my matzah.
Or gefilte fish and all the other you foods.
I hope this episode is making people hungry. That's all I'm saying.
I'm hungry.
All right. So yes, this is Danielle's sort of big emotional moment, and her mom is there to help her out. And yes, we get the joke about she could always move home. No. So we leave the Shiva finally. Danielle's been trying to do this for about the last 2 to 5 hours. And I like that she has this heart-to-heart with Maya. Things seem a little bit better. But of course, then we get this joke that they're taking too long and their parents are berating them. Why aren't you at the car already? So it's very much back to the beginning kind of conversations we were having. And then everybody, and I mean everybody, Maya, her mother Catherine, Maureen, Max, Kim, baby Rose, as well as Danielle and all of her family have to crowd into this minivan for some last physical humor. And then, of course, Joel can't find the keys because he couldn't find his phone earlier. And it's just like, at this point, I knew it was only a 77-minute movie, but I needed it to end because this was insufferable. I was like, I've reached the end. I cannot. Yeah. How much longer are we going to drag it out?
Yeah.
And at least we ended on a nice little button. You know, like, all of this sucks. But Maya extends a hand and grabs Danielle's hand, and they have like a nice touching moment before we just cut to black.
Yeah.
I like that we end with a moment of queer joy in this movie that is questioning how much Danielle can actually be her authentic self. Like, so much of it is about her relationship with Max that I like the movie ending on this moment of queerness.
Yeah.
And I would have gladly taken more of this movie, but like, you know, I feel like we always talk about, oh, wow, it feels like a short that's been stretched to feature length. And while that is quite literally what this one does, it all works. It all works.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a big hurdle for someone who made an 8-minute short. Like, jumping from 8 minutes to 77 minutes may seem like, oh, okay, you know, she could have pushed it further. She could have done more. But I think maintaining the tone of this film for 77 minutes without exhausting the audience, I think that that's quite a feat.
Oh, yeah. And it's just so, like, I want to spend more time with these characters.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, the movie doesn't need it. Like, how many feature-length movies get released under 80 minutes? Like, that's not, to be honest, quite common. I feel like a lot of times they require you to have, like, 85 to 90. But
oh, Trace, you're not watching enough Amityville films.
There's a thing. Is it an awards contender thing? There's something about length. I don't know. I might be making that up. But
it couldn't have been, because this movie got a lot of awards recognition. Well, maybe not.
So maybe not. I don't know. I might have been
I think
that up.
It was a back in the day distinction between A features and B So, like, you had to have a certain runtime, otherwise you were a B film, and they would slot you in accordingly based on, like, theatrical exhibition. But I don't know if that's still a holdover. Because even things like when you watch Netflix shows and, you know, you get a 26-minute episode and then a 68-minute episode, and you're like, okay, is this just Netflix
like,
doing their
sure,
big
whatever.
flex?
Yeah. I think, like, to your point about the tone, like, I know I'm probably just going to say exactly what you just said, but yeah, there's a lot of, like, want for more time with Maya, more time understanding the sugar baby situation and what that all is, more time understanding these things, but I think that in doing that, they would lose momentum. Like, I think what works so well is this, like, staccato angst that is just like, it never lets up. There's no time to look at her phone and see what's happening on the app and explain that because you're too busy being like, someone's gonna open the door while you're taking that nude. Like, it can't lose that momentum. So I kind of think that one was sort of sacrificed for the other in a way. Is it possible for both? Maybe, I don't know. And then it's a long 77. Like,
it is.
It feels like
I was convinced
forever.
This was an hour and 40.
It feels like forever, but not in a way that you're like, this movie's too long, get me out of here. But in a way
it's
like,
just get me out of here.
It's the intended effect. Like, it's supposed to feel long because you are anxious for all of it. But like, and staccato was a great descriptor for it.
Fantastic. Yes.
Go. I was capitalizing off of you describing the crescendo. So
music terms, yay!
Oh, theater nerd. You can't see there. Okay.
God. Well, okay. So that is Shiva, baby, everyone. Do we have any final thoughts, Lindsay?
No, I think we covered it. Shout out to Hot Rabbi. If there's any universities hearing this, shout out to my hot cantor. You know who you are. It's nice to see hot rabbis, I think.
Fair. Okay.
Agreed. I don't see many hot priests in my day, so yeah.
We usually see Fred Malamed as
that's true.
guys as
true.
rabbis. It's nice to see, like, a good looking rabbi, and he's not important. He's in it for like 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all I got.
Representation matters.
We need a hot rabbi, okay?
Do you realize, like, 3 days from now, I'm going to get a phone call from, like, my great aunt being like, I heard what you said about the cantor. Oh, God, they know
Grandma,
now.
it's not what you
think.
think.
I got to change shuls. My
Grandma, I'm
rabbi's offended.
bisexual. Leave me alone.
Oh, man. Okay, well, before we announce what we're covering next week, Lindsay, if you want people to find you on social media, where can they do that?
Sure, I'm on Instagram because we're dwindling. We're culling. I'm on Instagram at Smash Travis, SMASHTRAVES. But yeah, you can just find me all over the internet. But that's where I'm at.
And if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd to keep track of all the films we've covered. Go to our YouTube channel to check out our interviews with various horror filmmakers. And tune in once a month to hear about our most anticipated horror films for that month. If you want to chat with other listeners, go to our Facebook Horror Queers group. If you want to show us some love, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want even more content, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. We are nearing... Oh, no, we're in the middle of August. So subscribe today and you'll get around 258 hours of Patreon content, including this month's discussion of horror tropes that gotta go, as well as episodes on Meg 2, The Trench, Talk to Me, and The Last Voyage of the Demeanor. And tying in with that last one is our audio commentary for the month on Bram Stoker's Dracula, the 1992 Francis Ford Coppola film. Joe!
Yes.
We have another short movie next week.
We do, yes, but we're changing gears quite dramatically. So, Trace, I feel like last summer, because what is time? I feel like last summer we did a summer camp block. I could be wrong, but it's time to go back to camp because we're going to talk about Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers, for its 35th anniversary.
Yes, and I think, if I recall correctly, I talked this one up a lot in that Sleepaway Camp episode because I do prefer it to Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see whether or not you hold the film in the same high esteem this time around.
I am too. But until next week, everyone, we can cross out Shiva, baby.
Indeed, and cross out Horror Queers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.